Today, we are going to dive deep into time, money, and the mind. We're going to explore how we think about these things, what science is telling us about the deep, deep connection between our wallets and our well-being, and finally, we're going to ask a really big question. What is a single second of your life truly worth? Just let that sink in for a moment. We tend to treat our days like they're this endless resource, but what if every single second was a withdrawal you could never get back? This idea is really at the heart of everything we're talking about today, and it starts with a very human feeling, the pain of regret.
To really get a feel for this, let's start with a story. It's about a young man, Arjun, who, let's be honest, like a lot of us, thought tomorrow was this infinite promise, a thief that just quietly steals away today.
So Arjun takes this watch, and the request is kind of strange, right? But it's the first step on a journey for him to understand a kind of value that's way, way bigger than anything you could put a price tag on.
Okay, so what's so interesting here is how the price of the watch just keeps changing depending on who's looking at it. To the vegetable seller, it's a trinket. To the jeweler, it's a nice antique. But it's the watchmaker who sees something else entirely. He doesn't even offer a price. Instead, he offers a lesson.
And right there, it all clicks for Arjun. That ticking watch suddenly sounds like a heartbeat. He feels this immense weight, this pain of his own wasted time, realizing that while he was just waiting around for the perfect moment, his life was just slipping away, second by irretrievable second.
Arjun's pain was all about wasted time. But there's another kind of pain, isn't there? It's the pain of insecurity, the kind that comes from a life spent just working and working without ever feeling financially free. And this brings us to a really famous story from the world of finance. This book tells a super powerful story through two very different characters, a rich dad and a poor dad. And it's not just about money, really. It's about two completely different ways of thinking about how we work and how we build our lives. And this just lays out the central conflict perfectly. The poor dad represents a whole different kind of pain, not the pain of being lazy, but the pain of working tirelessly inside a system that just never quite leads to real security. It's the pain of a life spent trading your precious time for money, only to realize you never seem to have enough of either one.
So we've explored the pain of regrets and the pain of insecurity. Now let's pivot from these personal pains to a universal and maybe even an uncomfortable truth. It's a truth that connects Arjun's wasted seconds with the poor dad's hard-worked hours.
86,400. What is this number? I mean, it's not a price tag. It's not a salary. It's something way more fundamental than that.
This number, well, this is the great equalizer. From the richest person on the planet to a student struggling to get by, every single one of us gets the same 86,400 seconds a day. You can't put it in a savings account, you can't roll it over to tomorrow, you can only spend it. It's the one resource that is perfectly, and maybe a little terrifyingly, fair.
Okay, so now that we've laid down this universal truth about time, let's actually turn to the science. Let's look at its economic cousin, money, and see how it directly impacts our minds. We're moving from stories to hard data.
You know, for decades, there was this idea called the Easterlin paradox, which basically said that after a certain point, more money doesn't really make you happier. But it turns out that new, much better research has pretty much completely overturned that idea. The data is clear now. There is a strong causal link between how much you earn and how good you feel.
And the proof for that causal link? It's overwhelming. A massive review of 37 different studies found that just giving people money with no strings attached has a real, measurable, positive effect on their psychological well-being. This isn't just a coincidence. The science shows it's actually causing the improvement.
Okay, but hold on, because here's where the scientific truth gets really interesting, and maybe a little uncomfortable for some popular ideas. You've probably heard of the scarcity mindset, the idea that being poor directly drains your brain power and makes you bad at decisions. Well, it turns out the latest evidence doesn't really support that idea very strongly. In fact, according to this major review, the case for it is, and I'm quoting here, relatively weak.
That surprising fact leads us right into our final section, the path to curiosity. Because if the problem isn't as simple as a scarcity mindset, then what is the best way to break the cycle between poverty and well-being?
So how do we tackle this? Well, researchers are basically exploring two main paths. Do you try to help the mind directly with things like therapy or coaching, or do you help the wallet directly with things like cash transfers?
And here you can see the whole debate laid out. Targeting the mindset can be cheaper, but sometimes the effects are small or they just don't last. Cash transfers work really well, like we saw, but they're expensive and they might not change the underlying mindset. It's that classic puzzle, right?
Honestly, the evidence here is a bit of a tangled mess. Some studies say cash works best, others find that psychological help can be way more cost-effective. And it's this complexity, this messiness, that really fuels the curiosity of the people trying to solve this problem. And this leads us to our final big thought. We know there's a connection, a feedback loop between poverty and well-being. But is it a true trap? In economics, a trap is something specific. It's a cycle that's so strong, so self-reinforcing, that only a huge shock can get you out. Think of it like this. A feedback loop is like pedaling a bike uphill. It's tough, for sure, but you can stop. A trap? A trap is like being stuck in a deep rut in the mud. Pedaling harder won't do a thing. You need a massive push to get out.
So here's the takeaway. The science is clear. The link between our wallets and our well-being is real, and it is powerful. But whether that link is an unbreakable chain or just a difficult cycle that we can learn to escape, well, that remains the great unanswered question. So I'll leave you with this. What do you think is the key?